We're reading Rebbe Nachman's wisdom. We're on his praises, 16. The Rebbe's holy qualities were very apparent in his conquest of the universal desire, namely that of relations. He told us that he had countless temptations. Still, he insisted that relations was not really all that much to be desired, and certainly not a difficult test to withstand. The Rebbe said that any person, Jew or non-Jew alike, will not even think of relations as something that he must be desired if he is truly wise. If one knows anatomy and understands bodily functions, he should be absolutely repulsed by this desire. He spoke at length, but unfortunately most of his discussion was forgotten. However, the general trend of his conversation was that of sexual acts was ultimately repulsive. He emphasized this to such an extent that once he flatly stated, a man with even the smallest amount of true intelligence will not find this a temptation at all. There was a time in the Rebbe's youth when he had not subjugated this desire. At that time, he still had so many fearful sexual temptations that it was impossible to describe them in detail. In his youth, when his blood was literally burning, he experienced countless trials. He had many opportunities and was in great danger, time and again. But he was a stalwart warrior, and he overcame every evil desire. In this way, he surmounted his temptations many times. Despite this, the Rebbe did not seek to avoid temptation. He actually wanted to be tested and prayed to God to set temptations before him. This shows how self-confident he was that he would not rebel against God. For he said, "How can one sin and disobey God unless he is literally insane?" But with just a little common sense, all temptations can be overcome. So firmly was the Rebbe's heart resolved towards God. Despite all this, the temptations were very real. At the time, the Rebbe was in great peril. He would cry out to God again and again until he was able to surmount this evil. Difficult as his trials were, the Rebbe still did not attempt to avoid them. Countless times he battled with his passions until God helped him and he was able to subjugate his impulse entirely. The Rebbe finally destroyed the fiery chamber of this universal desire completely. He then became very holy and totally separating himself from such pleasures. His separation was absolutely a great and awesome level of holiness. The Rebbe said, "The forces of evil will concede to everything else, but this one thing I will surmount completely." The evil one was willing to let the Rebbe overcome every single desire as long as the Rebbe coincided to one thing. In all probability, this refers to sex. The most universal temptation, for the main battle with the evil one is this battle. But the Rebbe said that he would do the opposite. He would ignore his other desires, not work to control them at all, but the sexual desire he would eradicate completely. This is actually how the Rebbe began. At first, he directed all his effort towards this one goal, to annihilate every vestige of the sexual desire. He totally ignored such pleasures as eating and making no effort at all to subdue them. Indeed, he would eat very much, even more than most people, he said. At that time, I was drawing all my desires into my appetite for food, but later, even this appetite was subdued. Do not think that such self-control was a simple matter. In order to gain total control over his sexual instincts, the Rebbe had to battle countless temptations. It required many days and years of praying and begging and pouring out his heart before God, pleading that he rescue him from this desire. The Rebbe continued along this path until he was able to withstand all temptations. He sanctified himself to such a degree that his total separation from this desire cannot be imagined. In the end, he was worthy of subjugating it completely. He worked on himself until he actually found it difficult to understand how people can consider this desire difficult to control. For to him, it was no longer any temptation at all. The Rebbe discussed this with us often, telling us that how to annihilate this desire and and was completely repulsed by it. He said, "It is impossible to speak about this with people who have already defiled themselves. It is so intermingled with their blood that it has become a part of their very minds. Thus, they cannot comprehend this. It cannot enter their hearts, and they do not know that a person can possess so much self-control that he can actually be repelled by sex." But enough said. One who has any true intelligence at all can easily condition himself to reject this desire completely. For the Rebbe said that this is no temptation at all for the truly intelligent man. The Rebbe once said, "There must be a secret meaning in all this, for it is really no desire at all." He took pride in overcoming this instinct entirely. When it came to this, he was very holy and an awesome individual. He said, "I do not have any feeling of desire at all. Men and women are the same to me." When he saw or spoke with a woman, he needed not struggle to prevent an untoward thought, because it was all the same to him. 17. The Rebbe said, "The true tzaddik has such a degree of self-control that even marital relations are difficult for him. He is so far removed from these instincts that they cause him as much suffering as circumcision causes a child. The tzaddik has even more anguish, for an infant does not realize what is happening. But the tzaddik has full realization and therefore suffers even greater pain." The Rebbe considered this a simple accomplishment. He said, "Every person can attain this level." And from the way he said it, it was apparent that his own holiness was much greater.